Hello everybody. Today's video is going to be a little mod spotlight aimed at one of my newest favourite character mods, Warrick, the Unsung hero. Made by Justice Beetle & Co., this mod adds the titular Warrick to your game, a fully fleshed out character with his own unique perks, quotes, sounds, items, mechanics, gimmicks, and even an insight tree. After I did my last video where I highlighted miscellaneous content mods, a lot of people on my Discord suggested I check out the Warrick mod, as it somehow flew under my radar until now. A couple hours messing around with it later and I realised I need to bring a spotlight to this mod. It's so well made, so perfectly put together that I just got to talk about it. To start off, as you can expect, this mod adds but one new character, Warrick. He's a dashing, heroic swordsman with a fun personality that really sticks out among the rest of the cast. But personality alone isn't enough to carry a character in this game. Let's look at his stats and abilities. He has an average hunger of 150, but the very low max HP and sanity of only 100. This is the character's main and honestly only downside. Your health having a very low cap means you're always closer to dying than the average character, and considering Warrick is a combat focused character, it leads to some very tight and tense fighting. So what's the exchange for low HP and sanity? Well, the man himself also earns a neat 20% extra damage dealt. Not as much as Wigfrid's 25% extra damage dealt, and nowhere near as much as Wolfgang's 100% extra damage dealt, but unlike those guys, Warrick also, on top of that, has an innate 15% increased movement speed. You can slowly start to see the kind of combat character Warrick is shaping up to be. His final innate perk, before we start looking at the main pieces of his kit, is that on kill, he'll absorb 5% of the slayed enemy's HP and convert it into sanity. This kinda works like Wigfrid's leech stat, but is only ever applied directly after the enemy is killed instead of throughout combat. This is your main way of staying sane as the guy, as you'll go insane really fast thanks to how low his sanity is. Conversely, with the sanity gain on kill, it means you'll be flipping and flopping between insane and sane as long as you keep fighting for your life and killing things. But old Warrick here doesn't just have a few shifted stats to make him stand out, oh no, he also starts with some very potent pieces of kit. First of all, his Cavalier hat. This hat offers Warrick a decent amount of sanity regen, wetness protection and summer insulation. Not too remarkable on its own, but will hold some important power later on. Either way, it's a decent starting item, easy to craft as long as you can get saffron feathers. But it holds nothing to the main part of Warrick's kit, the sentient sword Quixote, or Quixote, or Quixote. I'm gonna pronounce it like that because that's how I heard it growing up. That crazy dude who tried to fight windmills. Anyway, this sword is to Warrick what Lucy is to Woody, an unbreakable sword that only he can ever use. That also happens to talk to them. This sword, boasting tentacle spike damage with infinite durability, is exclusive to Warrick and can only be made by him. Not by crafting it, but by using a spear to attack another enemy and it will turn into the sword. The sword itself is the main trade-off for Warrick having some pretty abysmally low health, but the main gimmick of the sword is that it innately has the ability to do some special attacks with right-click. By default it's a dash attack with iframes, which you can use as a pseudo-dodge. To put it into some form of perspective, if Wigfrid and Wolfgang were all strength-based damage dealers with high damage and even higher survivability, then Warrick is your dexterity-based damage dealer, who has a focus on evading attacks and dealing high damage between dodges, like a rogue or assassin kind of character, an archetype we don't have in Don't Starve Together yet. However, there is still more to this guy. A lot more. So Quixote, the magical talking sword, can take on numerous new forms. The way the forms work is that you craft them at their respective station with a gem of their respective colour. This will temporarily convert Quixote into a new special form with different perks. These forms, however, do have durability, and will run out after a certain amount of attacks, converting the sword back into its base unbreakable form. And the new forms can never be prototyped, meaning if you want to make these forms, you'll need to be next to the Prestidigitators or Shadow Manipulators or wherever you make them. So, what exactly are these new forms? First of all, you have the Ice form. This form, using a blue gem at a Prestidigitator, adds ice damage to your attacks, giving you the ability to slowly freeze your enemies in combat. With insight perks, because yes, this character has an insight tree, this form can also provide the wielder and nearby allies with immunity to freezing, as well as a completely different alternative attack, a big ice slam that does area freeze damage. Next up, you have the fire form. This form uses a red gem and adds burning damage to your attacks, letting you light enemies on fire. With insight perks, this sword can offer you and nearby allies immunity to fire damage when equipped, and swapping the dash attack with an explosive AoE attack. Both of those swords will change the temperature to be colder or hotter respectively. However, we got even more swords. The shadow form, made with a purple gem and a shadow manipulator, deals more damage than the previous forms at the cost of draining your sanity when equipped, just like a dark sword. Unlike the dark sword, this can be upgraded with insight perks to summon shadow tentacles on hit, as well as an alternative attack that gives you a ranged spike attack instead of a dash. Not done with forms yet, we got the lightning form. This form requires the insight perks to craft and is made from yellow gems and fuel sites at an ancient pseudoscience station. Since this can't be prototyped, this form requires a bit of legwork to keep up, but it is oh so worth it, since this form does electrical damage, which due to how electrical damage works in Don't Starve, deals way more damage than physical damage, and stupidly high damage to wet targets. It'll also glow enough to keep Charlie away, and increase your movement speed slightly when equipped, on top of your base movement speed, so you can move really fast with this thing. But to make up for its hard to craft nature, this sword can have its durability restored by electrocution, either by getting struck by lightning yourself, or by draining the charge from a lightning rod, Volt Go, or even Winona's generator, which makes for quite the potent synergy, and I love synergies between characters. Also, unlike the other swords, you'll get the yellow gem back when the form runs its course, thanks to yellow gems being a little bit rarer than red and blue gems. With additional insight perks, this lightning form can get even stronger, such as the ability to increase the charge gain from electrocution and even make the weapon unable to slip from your hands, topped off with an alternative attack that lets you smite your enemies from above. Keep in mind though that whilst wielded, this sword will function as a lightning rod, attracting lightning towards you whenever it strikes. Super useful for keeping the durability up, but can kill you in certain situations. Oh god!
What?
A really powerful form. But there are two more forms, the alignment forms, and those are really strong. But we'll talk about those later since we still got the rest of the perks to look at. As I mentioned and probably made abundantly clear already, Warrick has access to a whole heap of insight perks like any good character deserves. These are divided into perks for his swordplay, perks for his alignment, and perks for himself. The sword perks offer you upgraded specialised forms as I mentioned in their respective topics, but also some general sword perks, like increasing the durability of all of the special forms, reducing the ability cooldown rate, and even the ability to unleash a rapid 5-hit combo for super high burst damage occasionally when attacking, further cementing the character as a dash-in, dash-out type of combatant. But Warrick isn't just about his sword. With the perks in the heroics category, you can steel yourself against whatever the constant throws at you. With the bravery perks, you can grant Warrick immunity to sanity loss from using wormholes, as well as a reduction in sanity auras from bosses. Super useful on the account of Warrick's abysmally low sanity and how it goes up when you kill things. But what if you're not comfortable being always so close to death? Then, how about a way to combat Warrick's low HP? Then take the fancy footwork skills, which grants you a very small chance to automatically dodge attacks. The chance isn't super high, so don't expect to turn into a hold F and be immune to everything kind of fighter. It just lets you get away with the odd mistake every now and then, much like the Hero's Will perk, which grants you 1 instance of Death Defiance every day. Once per day, you can evade a single instance of fatal damage. This seems incredibly powerful, and it is, but consider it a one-time use bone armor that takes an entire day to refresh, and you'll see how it's not too overpowered. But when combined with his Last Stand perk, which grants Warrick a huge increase to all stats, including damage, speed, and armor when brought down to low HP, you just found a new incredibly risky glass cannon character to play with. Move aside, Wanda. Though with his free death, dodge chance, and movement abilities with his sword forms, he's a lot more forgiving and rewarding to play as a glass cannon, which is superb. But you don't have to play him as a glass cannon if you don't want to, and you can just take these perks as a bit of insurance when fighting. But we're not done. Oh lord, are we not done. Remember that fancy hat that he spawns with? Well, you can take a pair of perks to buff this thing. One of these grants the hat an increase in wetness and insulation rates, whilst the other grants you a 10% increase in damage dealt when worn. So this offers an interesting dilemma. You have a character who is very squishy, can do lots of damage but not take a lot of damage. So normally you'd want to wear a decent headslot armor like a football helmet, fuel sight crown, or even a dreadstone helmet. Or you can continue to wear his upgraded Cavalier hat for its insane weather protection and a flat increase to your DPS when upgraded, meaning you'll need to rely on body armor for most of your fighting. It's choices like this which make this insight tree super lovely and very well thought out, giving the player choices, risks and rewards. It's all a part of the character and charm that this mod offers. But of course, we're still not done, because you can also get some new toys to craft with insight perks. The first of which is a heroic horn. This bad boy has a steep recipe and only 10 uses, but when played, buffs all nearby allies with 10% more damage and halved insanity auras for 1 minute. Think of this as a better Wolfgang whistle that actually makes sense for the character, functions properly and doesn't punish the wearer for doing what Wolfgang does best, fighting stuff. Anyway, with how costly this horn is, it's best reserved for when you and your allies are about to deal some big damage to a very scary boss. And finally, the last special insight craftable item is the Hoppy Horse. Cute name and concept all around, this is basically your own walking cane, but with one unique little gimmick. You can jump with it. It's not enough to cross most river gaps, but you can cross them if they're tight enough. It's more so good for jumping in or out of danger, and the little speed buff it gives. It can even be used by your friends. Not as fast as a walking cane and has durability, so it won't ever fully eclipse one, but it is a nifty early game thing, and you can even refresh the durability by feeding it veggies, with carrots being the best at the job. So cute and fitting, I love it. So with upgrades to its fighting potential, survivability, utility and even some supportive abilities, Warrick's insight tree offers an incredible amount of depth for a character that, on the surface, seemed pretty simple. It's a keystone trademark that all insight trees should strive for. And honestly, one that's hard to make a build for because all of the perks are super useful, and you can't take all of them. It's just like Walter's insight tree, I swear. But I didn't go over the alignment perks, so let's do that now. As well as aligning Warrick to their respective side, each alignment will grant Quixote a new form, the Brilliant and the Nightmare form. These forms, made out of their respective materials at their relative stations, boast high planar damage, increased durability, and even the ability to be repaired with their respective repair kits. But on top of that, each have their own special on-hit effects and abilities. Brilliant Quixote has a similar effect to the Enlightened Crown, and will occasionally summon little gestalts to attack your enemies alongside you. Pretty cool, pretty nifty, but this form shines the brightest with its special ability, which grants the sword a big old laser blast that puts enemies to sleep if it doesn't kill them. Nightmare Quixote, on the other hand, is a little bit different, and a personal favourite of mine. If your health isn't full, every hit on an enemy will drain some of its HP to you, granting you health in exchange for a tiny bit of sanity. Basically, it's just like a Bat-Bat. Unlike a Bat-Bat, you can use its special ability to ensnare enemies in a radius, making this choice the more defensive option when compared to the Brilliant variant. Final thing to mention about these forms is that they will gain increased damage both physically and planarly, that's not a word, whenever you wear their associated headgear item. Slightly more than the Cavalier hat when it's fully buffed, but without its insanely good insulation and or fashion sense. And with that, we wrap up pretty much everything this mod has to offer for now. You have a dexterity based character with a boatload of perks and abilities, different fighting styles and play styles, all wrapped up neatly with a fun and addicting personality, complete with quotes for literally everything in the game, and a custom voice to boot. Which also applies to Quixote, whose quotes also change depending on the form they are currently in. It's clear just how much passion and love was poured into this mod, as it shines in nearly every aspect. Did I mention how the artwork looks like Clay did it themselves? A big thing I look for when I want to add mods to my game is, could this be mistaken for vanilla content? And this mod absolutely could be. If you want to be skeptical of the mod a little bit, you could consider this mod as basically Wigfrid with Lucy as a sword and lots of damage. But if Wolfgang is allowed to exist and deal double damage for the cost of doing absolutely nothing, then I'll always support this mod at the end of the day. But if you think the sword does a bit too much damage for a starting item, you can always tweak it in the mod settings if you want to make it just a tiny bit more balanced. Your world, your rules. Oh, I almost forgot. This mod, as long as you have the Custom Skins API mod, also adds a bunch of new skins for both Warrick and Quixote themselves. And they all look ruddy gorgeous. Passion project and a half this mod is. If you made it this far in the video, then please go try this mod out. It is an absolute treat to play with. The author deserves to hear how fantastic all of this is, so make sure to let them know. But that wraps up today's mod spotlight. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys have any other mods you want me to look at, then drop them on the Discord or in the comments down below. These mod videos are super fun to work on, and I'll for sure be down for some more soon. There's quite a few on my radar already, like a full Reign of Runts video and a revisit to a certain character mod I did a while back, but we'll get to those eventually. But until then, take care everybody. Bye bye.